What's going on, everybody? We want to welcome you back to the Rick Podcast. I'm Eric, and we're going to be talking with our guy Shane Brown. Today, we're going to be talking about choices. It was something that Shane, you brought up a few days ago when we were talking about, hey, what's a topic that we can talk about uh, that might help different guys heal, or if it's a transition in life or something like that. And when you told me, I was like, dude, that's a really cool topic. So, yeah, we'll let you kind of get into it, man, since it was your idea, and we'll just see how the conversation goes, like we typically do. And I know you're going through some pretty big changes right now that I think some people know that listen to the podcast, and some others don't. But I'm stoked for you, dude, for sure, on your new journey. So we'll kind of let you get into that, and we'll go from there, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, it's something I actually thought about it when we were talking with Dr. Romig the other day. I thought that was a really good um, interview with him. I appreciated him coming on with both of us and share. I mean, you and I talk to him all the time, so a lot of that information is stuff that you and I talk about a lot. But it was nice to have him explain it so anybody out there listening hopefully feels more comfortable with that information coming directly from a doctor. But as we talked and as he explained stuff, there's so many things I thought about the conversations I've had with people since we've been doing this, that so many things come down to choices. They come down to, we are bombarded now with information. We have so much access to all this stuff. And, it on the surface of things, it would seem like we have in 2025, there should be a pretty basic playbook of like, here's how you do this, and here's how you fix this. And I mean, you get those questions, I get those questions. I even think that to myself, like, why isn't it just simple to just do one, two, three, and that should just fix everything, right? And Chris said it, it's like the shot is not a magic bullet. He made statements like that resonated with me. That it's like, yeah, we've been saying that for a year and a half, but yet still people we're trying to help don't realize that they have to change the daily choices they make in conjunction with getting help like the SGB shot or something like that. And then just understanding that, just the word itself, choice, implies that you have the ability to make a choice, to choose. And some of the neuroscience actually indicates that that might not be the case because of the way that our brains are wired and the way that neurons work and just the kind of the systematic way that our brain develops habits. And so it's easy to just assume that people do things and that they made a bad choice. But then it's like, well, did they, or is it a habitual thing? The choice was almost made for them at a biological level. And so those things they fascinate me. And then because for years, and I think you and I talked about it several times about uh, back when you were new to this stuff, when I was going through my stuff, it was like, man, just tough up, man up, deal with it, push on. It's just all the stuff we were taught was just that, it was just weakness, and you can beat it out, you can work harder, you can do this, you can do this, you can overcome it. But now taking the scientific approach to it and understanding it, I think is important. So I just like it because, yeah, when Chris was talking, it was so much that was resonating with me, and I'm sure you too. We kind of talked offline about a lot of it, but because yeah, so many people are looking for something like the shot to just be the magic bullet, fix it, and then carry on doing things that are not helping them. Making poor choices, whatever that looks like. So. And as you kind of alluded to, yeah, I'm actually making a big change in the fire department. I'm actually it's looks like I'm leaving Fresno Fire. I'm going to take a battalion chief position in another fire department. So this is probably my last week in Fresno Fire. Yeah, all the all the time here is coming to an end, so it's a big deal for me. And it's a big choice. I mean, it's something that's been on the radar for a few months now. It's not an easy choice. There's a lot of variables to the decision. Um, and but at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's the right choice for me, for my family, and for the stage in my life. So, but it wasn't an easy choice. And it's funny, conversations I've had about that decision, so many people are just like, "Oh man, are you sure? Are you just like, no, of course I'm not sure. How can I be sure? There's no guarantee." But I like to think I'm smart enough that I've weighed out all the options. I'm looking at the pros, I'm looking at the cons. I'm shooting holes in it. I'm trying to decide. is it the right decision for me? And, if I'm heavily leaning towards yes, then I'm going to go. I can't, if I wait until I have a guarantee, I'll be waiting my whole life and then everything's going to pass me by. So I just, yeah, I just thought it was a appropriate kind of topic with all the stuff that you and I do and talk about. So,
Yeah, I think it's man, there's a lot you just said I was resonating with as well. Uh First of all, Chris, man, it's that podcast was, if we would have had video, all of our heads are just nodding, right? That's probably going to be something we're going to have to do here soon as get video, but um yeah, as far as the choices, dude, I think I've told this to you before. Um we tell ourselves we have the choice to heal, or we have the choice to make a decision, whether you're going to, go take the BC spot, or you're going to stay in the same department, or leave fire departments, or take that promotion, or whatever it might be. But I think specifically with something like the mental health side, um, I think sometimes choices feel like they are made for you. I can look back at myself, right? And Chris said something that I was like, wow, it's been a few years and I never thought about it like that. He said, it's like, yeah, you're in an airplane and you can't even enjoy the view, right? And
yeah.
it's like your body biologically is making the choice for you, even though you're trying to look out that window and you're going over Alaska, you're going over Europe in a plane, and you're like, I just want to look out and enjoy the view. And you can't. You're trying to make that choice, but you're so hindered in so many ways, you don't even know what's good right in front of you. And so I think with the SGB shot, or below you if you're in a plane, but when you get that SGB shot, it really does reset that. And I think it's such a big thing into resetting your brain now, to where now I feel like, I don't feel, you are, your body is now able to make that choice, and you're going to make it from a calm state, and you're going to make these choices, whatever you're going to do. It can be marriage, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be porn addiction, it could be depression, it can be, jobs, it can be whatever. There's so many things, like you said, that we have choices to make. And when you're in that survival mode, I think sometimes your body is, you're surviving. So it's just doing something for you without you really realizing what you are truly doing, if you are in that fight or flight mode, right? So with the shot, like Chris said, it's like the plane's crashing, right? And you can't even look out the window, and you're just literally trying to just stay alive every day. That's how I felt. And on the outside, it may not look like that. Oh, he's doing this, or he's laughing, or he's joking, because we're trying to put on a face for everybody, right? To do the right thing, because we do have to keep going. We do have to tough up, we do have to do that. But eventually you just keep living in that same cycle and cycle and cycle, dude, and it gets so annoying. So goddamn annoying, and you're trying to get out of it. So with the choices, with this topic, I thought, I was like, dude, that's really good, man, because if anyone is listening to this and they're like, I just feel like I can't make a choice because of the trauma, or the marriage, or alcoholism, or whatever addiction you might have, or just a hard time in life, because the majority of our listeners are first responders, and this is something that isn't really taught much, as far as taking care of your mental health, right? It is just like always toughen up. But when you have something like a biological reset and you've been suffering, you will now have a better mental state to make those choices from, within a lot better, if that makes any sense. I know that's how it was for me. Once I got the shot, it was like, oh, okay. Everything was pretty stinking clear of what I needed to do. Now that real work really started. Um, and so, yeah, man, it's so crazy, dude, because like you said, we get emails. We just got an email from someone, the other day, and it's crazy how this podcast is growing. But when you get the shot, or whatever decision you make, we need to make the decision, I'm going to do this, right? And it's like someone like you. Alcohol hasn't, I went through a couple little stages of, you know, I wouldn't say, I was a drunkard, but, a couple years of I was using it way too much as a crutch, but it was never really like a problem for a very long time. Um, but I made the choice, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm noticing I'm using this for the wrong reasons. It's just not social drinking to relax. It's, I'm going to go have a beer with my buddies or have some whiskey or when I'm playing a gig. It was more like, no, I'm using this to escape. And it was something in my head of like, oh shit, like that's not right. I've never been like this. So it's like, thankfully alcohol wasn't something I always gravitated to. It was like that little year and a half, 2 year period where I'm like, okay, I have to stop this now. So it was a choice I made. And I think anything that we choose in life, if we are not sure of what we want to do, then we're gonna keep like sort of like vacillating back and forth kind of. So we need to be sure, what do we want? Do we want to heal? Do we want to move forward? Do we really want the change? And when we decide that, whether we know it's going to work out or not, like you said it with your BC spot, right? It's like, I don't really know 100%, but I've done all these things, so I'm going to make my decision, because now you're focused on it, and you're going to see where that path or that journey takes you, right? And I think the exact same thing, dude, goes into our mindset, our healing journey. We need to make that decision. Okay, I'm deciding I'm gonna do the SGB shot. I'm going to go to a therapist, or I'm going to, heal this past trauma, or work on the marriage, or uh, let go of alcohol, or cut it back, or whatever it might be. But once you make that decision, like, have grace on yourself, but just start with those small steps and stay focused on it. And damn, it's not easy, but we need to be real with ourselves and stick to it, no matter how hard that gets. Because if we don't stick on that, dude, we get the text messages, we get the phone calls, we get the emails. Hey man, after the shot, can I go have a beer? Can I go do this? Can I go do that? It's like, no, that's not what you should do. So you mentally have not made that choice of like, I'm going to heal. I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to do this. And I'm not saying you're not going to have lapses, right? If you're really trying to heal something, it's going to take time, but you need to make that mindset shift like you did, right? Of, you know what? Hey, I don't have to have alcohol. I don't have to have this, but I'm going to make this decision now, because this is going to make me better, my marriage better, a better captain, and whatever you might do in the, the fire service, or whatever job you do, um, brother, husband, wife, anything. Just look at something that could push you to keep that decision in concrete for yourself, is what I would say. And everybody that's different, dude. Everyone that's different, I feel like, man. And when you make that choice, every how cliche this sounds, every day is a new day. Right? That sounds so, that's a, like what you said, the bumper sticker bullcrap, right? But it's true, dude. Like, you have a fresh start that next day. But I try not to use the next day as a fresh start. I say I'm going to start now, but understand that every day is a new day, and just keep moving forward. Do that 1%. Do what you need to do to keep just, I don't want to say grinding it out, because you can grind something that you can grind something out, and it's at the other side of whatever you're grinding, it may not be what you want. But as long as you're working hard, or you're working towards a goal driven, or a purpose for the right reasons, then you just got to keep going.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of the way I look at this and the way the choices are. It's we get locked into a mentality that it's if you make a choice and it's wrong, it's like the end of the world. And so one of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius is the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So it's the concept of the obstacle becomes the way. So if you break that quote down, the impediment to action advances action. So the impediment, as in the obstacle, to the action you want to take. So whatever your perceived obstacle is that is preventing you from taking the step forward to making a choice, it is usually the way you need to go. It is what is going to advance the action. It's going to be the direction you need to head. So finding that everything you need or want is usually on the other side of some kind of fear is very liberating, but easy to say, hard to do. And it's funny, like, when you were talking about our buddy that wanted to have a beer after the shot kind of thing, and the context of that, it was exactly that scenario that I was thinking about when Chris was talking about one of the points when we were talking, when I kind of was trying to be a wise ass and preface, yeah, dumbass firemen don't listen. Can you tell these guys, like, be as calm as possible going into it, take some time afterwards to be calm, kind of thing. And because that's exactly what I was thinking of, was that individual, very smart person, understood biologically what the shots were going to do, same conversations we've had multiple times. I thought went into it with a really clear understanding of, like, okay, I'm going to get the shot, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to go back, because, and this was in the early stages when we were still, people were getting the bilateral in the same week, and we didn't know that that wasn't a good idea. So he was scheduled for like a Monday right side, Wednesday left side. And I remember on a Tuesday, he shoots me a text and he's like, "Hey, brother, you think one drink could be a problem today?" And I remember reading that text and thinking, like, son of a bitch. Like, dude, you're spending all this money. We had this conversation before you left. Like, even you texting me as a grown man probably should indicate to you that you already know it's a bad idea. You're just looking for my validation, my approval to say, yeah, have at it. It's like, yeah, it won't hurt you. And it just was so funny because I was like, and that's what I wrote back essentially, was like, well, dude, if you even have to ask me, you probably already know the answer. And I'm like, do what you want. You're an adult, but I would give this thing every possible chance to work by not adding alcohol to my body right now, paying all this money to get a biological reset. And it was funny because, like, later talking to him about it, he didn't even think much of that being a problem, didn't think of that moment uh as kind of a eye opener to himself, like, man, I really got to change some habits. I need to start thinking about my daily choices, because I couldn't even go a day without thinking, like, I could just have one drink, no big deal. And so, yeah, the I go back to, like, the Center of Excellence time, a lot of conversations, a lot of the class work that we did there, and so much of all of this to me dovetails into just daily choices in general, whatever that looks like. And when you were talking about making the choice and sticking to it, there's the juxtaposition of that, is that you're also not locked in. Like, if you've made a choice that's wrong and you're in a spot, in a state that, it's like marriage, let's say. I shared when I went to the Center of Excellence, when I got the DUI, I was on the verge of divorce. I mean, I had made up my mind I was getting divorced. Like, I was done. I blamed her for everything. I had been a great husband, worked my ass off, didn't cheat on her, didn't take advantage of her, didn't hurt her. I mean, like, I provided a really nice life, all that stuff. Totally pumped myself up like I'm the good guy, and she just doesn't appreciate me, right? So I'm out. I'm done. So my solution is to go get shit faced and drive drunk. Brilliant. Um, the so talk about choices. Obviously, a poor choice. So what I do with that in the aftermath was up to me, and I tried to make good choices to make a really good thing out of a shitty thing. Um, but the point is, it's at that level where my marriage is okay. Hey, it's done. I mean, in that moment, you talk to Shane in early February of 23. I'm done. I'm out. It's over. I want nothing to do with her anymore. I want to move on with my life. You name it. So how do I get from there to where I am now, to where, like, our marriage is strong, things are going well? Um, it's not just a simple choice. It's not like I just made the decision to make my marriage better. When I went to the Center of Excellence, one of the things her and I talked about before I left was, like, hey, while I'm there, I might find out that I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. I might do it in a healthy way, right? unpack it, do the stuff, do the work, take a deep dive on myself and realize, you know what, I'm better off single, or I married the wrong woman, or hey, we're better off friends. Pick your cliche, whatever. Um, but I went into it with an open mind, knowing that like I wasn't there to quote unquote fix my marriage. I was there to work on myself. And then if fixing my marriage came out of that, then okay. But I also went in on the flip side where if my marriage was over, it was over. So again, that choice, it's like you're not locked into where you can't make a different choice.
But your choice, dude, I think it's a key point. It was to work on yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's a key point that people need to realize. It wasn't like, well, you know what, I'm going to go work on myself, and if I come back and so and so doesn't like it, then I worked on myself, right? You did it from the correct mindset of like, hey, I'm going to have an open mind here. I'm going to see, you know, how this whole center of excellence thing is going to work out. But your goal and your intent, and that's why I said you made the choice. It wasn't to per se save the marriage, but your intent was for a good purpose. And that's why when I said that earlier, it was like, as long as you're doing things with the right intent for the right purpose, things typically will work out, whether it's to save the marriage or not, or to whatever the things are. But your intent and your purpose was to work on yourself to then make a decision with a clear mind, right? And that I think is super key. But you weren't doing it out of spite. You weren't doing it out of bitterness. You were doing it because you knew you effed up. And you're like, you know what? I need to go work on myself. I'm going to, take ownership of this. And whatever comes out of it, at least I'm doing the right thing. And I think that's the key point, dude. Is you did
Yeah,
the
I
right.
mean, it, in that instant, right? And like what you were saying, I agree with too. There's times where no, you got to stick it out. Like when you make a choice, like you need to stick it out and you need to finish off. I don't want to make it sound like, yeah, if things get uncomfortable, you just quit and give up on it. I'm just saying that a lot of our conversations with people, you can tell people feel stuck. People feel like they're in a situation they can't get out of, kind of thing. And it's like, well, dude, if your marriage is over, it's over. Like, I mean, there's a certain uh point when you have to realize that you've done everything you can. You can walk away with your head up and start your life over, kind of thing. But that's scary. It's scary to a lot of people, and but it goes down to the choices of, again, it's to me, I'm leaving the security of the job I currently have to go to a job that is new and a different place and has its own set of challenges, and there's all kinds of things that are on the table. So does that mean if I get there I can't make other choices? Like, of course not. There's always opportunities. There's always things I can do. And so that's kind of how I think about a lot of stuff, and I don't let that concern um occupy too much space in my mind. I try to be, I don't know, rational about how I approach stuff. Um and not to say I make uh, great choices every day, because I mean it goes down to something as simple as like look at like diet. I don't make great choices all the time on my diet. I mean, we had pizza last night at the firehouse. It's just like it's not like I'm like Mr. Discipline every day, but I just think that like the just the fear of failure, that if you make the wrong choice, like there's so much that's riding on it that the consequences are so grave. We kind of have this society built around that. Um, and it goes back to even like in the fire service, we train ourselves that way. Go back to some of our conversations from anxiety and safety and guilt and all these control, all the acronyms we build and the measures we put in to keep everybody safe all the time. It's kind of wild when you think about it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Now there's a lot of ways I want to take this conversation right now, but I'm going to go back with the marriage thing. So, with choices, right? Uh, if I would have known, anyone that's listened to our podcast or gone through any of the episodes, if people don't know, and this is the first podcast that they're listening to, I think we're gonna get into my story. I know, Shane, you want to interview me one day about it and kind of get more deeper into it, but I was married for a little over 12 years, and it was just a bad deal. And I can definitely say that both of us were making decisions out of a trauma response. And, we thought, as just like you said, hey, if your marriage is over, it's over. So Sable ended up committing suicide in 2019. She was my wife. And when you are both trying to survive, neither of you, due to childhood trauma, due to religious trauma, due to us being firemen, right? Secondary trauma. We've talked about that, right? Just us coming home from the job, and they're taking on some of that trauma that we don't even know that we're initially bringing home. And if I would have, because I thought the same, dude. I did the same thing to Sable as you were. I took care of her. I'm a fireman. I'm doing the right stuff. I'm providing. I'm doing this. I'm not a lazy guy. I'm not, I'm giving her. I'm giving her everything. What does she have to complain about? Going on, vacations for our anniversary to Hawaii for a month and spending, like I did the same stuff, dude. But there was a lot of things I was missing, right? And if I would have known about, this is something I have to, obviously deal with. But if I would have known about the SGB shot 6 years ago, I think for sure, dude, it would have had massive effects on our communication, on our sex life, on our marriage, on so many levels, dude. But I was in the mindset just like you. I'm like, oh, you know what? I grew up a Christian, so it's like you don't get a divorce. Unless it's like the last thing you think about, right? So we were just sticking it out, but then it creates this super toxic environment. But something is off, but you don't know how to fix it. But you love each other, but there's so much trauma there that you don't even know how to communicate properly. So like something like the SGB, dude, like I give it to you, man. And anyone that listens to this podcast that is married or in a relationship, like, and you're on the rocks, like if I would have had it a few years ago, I don't know what the outcome would have been, but I feel like it would have been like what you said, Shane. It's like at least you have an open and clear mind, and now you're able to work on things correctly, right? Unfortunately, in my case, she's no longer here. And there's numerous times, dude, I'm like, gosh, I wish she can just see all the work we're doing, right? Of mental health, of talking about suicide, of, hey, there is help, right? To biologically reset your brain, to help with suicide, to help with depression, to help with anxiety from a very healthy standpoint, to get your body back to a normal place, right? But she's not here and I can't do that. So it's like one of those things that, you just deal with, and you overcome it. But I think for sure anyone that is in that state, if they're on the rocks and they're just like, oh my gosh, this marriage is so done, it's over, it's like, well, take a step back and try to reevaluate what's going on, like you did, and then start there, right? And it comes back to working on yourself. And if it's over, it's over. It is what it is. But I feel like most of us first responders, we are coming from a place of survival. We're coming from a place of lack to a certain degree because we are sleep deprived in a lot of ways and our body's not recovering. So we're making decisions just the best we can with what we've got. Not saying it's bad or anything. It's just we're doing the best we can with a job that's it's just different, right? Um, so yeah, man, it's with choices. It's one of those things, man, that just we do have the choice to make it better or worse. Is basically what I'm trying to say. And it's going to be up to us every day to figure out the best we can what decision we need to make to come to hopefully a positive outcome. And that's not always easy, man. That is not easy. There's a book, dude, that I think I sent both of them your way. If any, people that are listening, it's by Tim Grover. There's one that's called Relentless. It's really, really good. And then I just finished the other one. It's called Winning. And it's two books he wrote, but he was actually the coach for Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and some top athletes. And one of the things that everybody struggles with, dude, you're talking about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, is their mental state when they are going, for the championship, and they're going, for the big win, right? Because they want to get their rings. It's like he doesn't take them in there to he trains them physically, but the majority of it is a mind game. And he goes, this stuff isn't taught, right? It's because when you're alone, it's like you only have your thoughts. You you can try to escape your thoughts, but they're there, right? You're sleeping in bed, your mind's racing, and it's just like, what's going on, right? So like there's so much stuff in those two books, man, that I've learned the past month. And it's something that I've realized more and more and more on how mental health and how we train our brain, our thoughts, what we put into our mind is so critical. But failure, we need it though, dude. Right. And like you said, it's one of those things of, oh, we're afraid to look stupid in front of our friends or we don't want to fail. It's like, dude, BS. Like, if, if we always, if everything always worked out for us, would we ever learn? If we always made the right decisions, would we ever learn? If we never failed, would we ever learn? We wouldn't, right? I mean, we maybe a little bit, but
No, it goes, yeah. I mean, we talked about it in previous podcasts and the mentality of like failure being an opportunity.
yeah,
You were up here recently for the class that we did, and that's a big thing that I'm all about is like, yeah, no, failure's a great teacher and it is where you learn. And it's interesting to think about choices and you with the situation with Sable, and I'm sure that it weighs on you about, yeah, if you didn't know the SGB shot existed uh, during that time, what would be different? And that's a mind game you have to overcome, I'm sure. But I actually thought about it with my dad being an ex-cop, East LA, partner was murdered in a liquor store robbery. From that point forward, I mean, my dad drank his whole life, but from that point forward, my dad was never the same, and he uh he ended up dying from alcohol. And the he was never a drunk. I mean, I've said this on the podcast before. My dad was a super good dude, wasn't a fall down drunk, was, very functional, but he drank every day of his adult life and destroyed his liver ultimately. And um, obviously that's a choice. He made choices all the way till the end, right? But had we known about the SGB shot 20 years ago, which they were doing it 20 years ago, like, would my dad still be here? Yeah, probably. So like that's part of our mission, obviously, is sharing this with people so that we at least get it out there to maybe save as many people as we can from heading down those. And we've talked about it before. You can't save them all. I mean, there's a lot of people we've talked to that we've tried to help who continue to make poor choices, and they continue to get in the same feedback loops where they're 6 months later, a year later, "Oh, I need to go get another shot." And it's like, well, okay, but are you doing the work? And are you really being diligent day in and day out to do what you need to do to make the right choices? And again, this isn't trying to preach because I make mistakes all the time, but it's a matter of making the mistake, doing what you can to learn from it, put it behind you, move on. Don't dwell on the
yeah,
past. And that in and of itself is a choice.
yeah. There's so there's a lot that happened, on the we talked about this on the podcast with Dr. Rummig, but I lost a really good buddy of mine, Javen Settles. Um, really, really great dude, and just crazy how super, super young. And you just have to realize that, every day, you know, we every day we wake up, we do have a choice of how we want to be, right? Because there may be that one day that you don't wake up, right? And then I know in your fire department, you guys lost someone actually to suicide a few weeks ago, right? And uh, dude, I totally just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Where I was going with it.
You were
Um,
talking about Javen and stuff like that.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, we did. We actually lost a retired captain to suicide, and then and he made a choice because he had from everything I understood, he had a condition that was leading to him having like part of his foot amputated, and it was starting to mess with his mobility. And one of his life's pleasures, one of the most important things to him, was like hunting and fishing and recreation and outdoors. And the guy was just a consummate outdoorsman. So I think for him, the prospect of not being able to do that anymore was too much, and he didn't want to live his life that way. Now I'm speculating. I didn't read. I know he left a note, and I know that um, the family note. They read the note, stuff like that. But the conversations I had, the information I was given was essentially that's what the reason that he did it. And hearing something like that, it's one of those where I listen and I go, God, well, I mean, I kind of understand it, because I could, like, the way I live my life, the things I do, I wouldn't want to be bedridden. I wouldn't want to lose my leg. I mean, there's it's it makes sense on the surface um to understand that the fear of, oh my gosh, I'd have to lose everything that's important to me. And so, but to make that choice is obviously there's no turning back. There's no reset button. So it's a pretty extreme choice in that situation. Um, but on the flip side, like within another 2 weeks, I think it was on Christmas Eve, we lost another retired fire captain who I worked with, the same station, ironically, as the captain who committed suicide. But this particular captain, he passed away from just health issues, and he was a boozer, and severe uh, traumatic incidents that occurred in his life. Wife was killed in a vehicle accident while he was on duty. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And so, guy's been through a lot, hell of a guy. But ultimately, that health got him. But if you traced it back, I mean, he didn't always make the healthiest choices. So, it's just not to take anything away from either one of them. They were phenomenal men. I learned a lot from both of them. Um, I loved and respected both of them. So, Javen, I was fortunate enough to know him a little bit. Call him a friend. But I didn't get a chance to spend as much time with him as you did. And
Yeah.
by all accounts, I mean, I work with a lot of Ontario guys that are on the team I'm on. Obviously, he was with Ontario, so it was devastating for them. And just, but yeah, that's it, man. Like you said, you go to bed, you're not even sure you're gonna wake up in the morning. So, you know,
Yeah.
the-
Yeah, we were so Javen and I, so when I left Apple Valley, he actually left FDNY. He was in a firefighter up out in FDNY for I think it was 5 years, 6 years, something like that. But yeah, we were in the same drill school. He was what's called, we call them litter mates in Long Beach. And yeah, we were litter mates, and just one of the nicest guys, man. And we just totally hit it off in drill school. And it's funny because he was called what's called a can man. And if anyone that's listening to this is kind of like a fire buff or like, what the heck is a can man? They basically cruise in with a PW, or a pressurized water extinguisher, and the irons. And they do some VES stuff, and they do some pretty cool stuff with that PW. And so that's what he did. So anyways, we were in drill school unrolling hose for Wildland Day, and he's watching me unroll this hose. And I remember I'm trying to unroll this hose, and he's looking at me. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And he goes, I've never done that before. I'm like, you've never unrolled hose like this he's like, no, man, I've never had a wildland fire before. I'm looking at him, dude. And I'm like, that's so crazy, dude, right? And I was actually talking to another buddy from Long Beach the other day, and we were, talking about stories and stuff like that. And um, uh, it was the same thing, and he wasn't used to hiking up hills. And this, Javen was super fit and just CrossFit, and he's actually on the like FDNY calendars and stuff like that, and whatnot. And six pack, and just a freaking manimal dude. And we're doing the progressive hose lays, and he's tries to sprint and everything, and we're like, dude, like, just we got to keep a good pace here, right? Just, yeah, didn't last that long with that sprint, right? I get there's times you're gonna be you're gonna be punching in hose pretty fast, right? But anyway, so it was funny, man, because we look at these FDNY guys. I mean, phenomenal, obviously, on that skill set. But when they come to California, it's like, he became a paramedic, and then he did hazmat stuff, and then he did wildland stuff, and then he did more, all these other different things. And it was like, gosh, you guys out here do so much more stuff. Like there, I'm a can man, you know? And it was really cool to work with him, dude, and pick his brain, and just always smiling and always a positive guy. And, he's one of those guys, man, that was going through it in life too. And his was a heart thing, but was it a 9/11 thing? Because he was an EMS worker during 9/11. He wasn't on the fire department yet, so we don't know. But it's just crazy. The reason I'm bringing that story up is because it is part of the healing process, right? It is part of something to respect our brothers and sisters out there that are given so much of themselves to this job, right? And we actually have his funeral next week. Anyone that's listening to this that's local, it's going to be the 14th out in Ontario at the convention center. So I'm going to post this up here, tomorrow. So anyone that's listening, you can, that's where it's going to be for Javen. But yeah, man. I mean, so what are some things you think, like, we talk about the choices, we talk about the mindset, we talk about the failure, we talk about, all these things, but do you have anything, does anything pop in your mind, um, of maybe a simple choice that we can help people, as far as if they're going through something difficult, like alcoholism or something, like, because I know a lot of people have reached out to you about that, right? So is there anything maybe that you have, Shane, that could help somebody, maybe, of like, hey, if you're kind of feeling like this, maybe this choice might help you out for a little bit, or try this. Because alcohol is like really never my thing, like I said. I could talk about suicide and mindset and other things like cold plunging and journaling, all this kind of stuff. But uh, is there anything that you have, dude, that you can think about, of kind of like, hey, maybe this is a choice you can try, or like think about this. This might help to kind of get you started. Anything that pops into your head?
I think for me, it's the same. I think it's the same for all this stuff, to be honest with you. And I think it starts with making the choice that you're going to take accountability, that you're going to own it 100%. Stop blaming others. Um, Stop looking for uh, a way to find fault as to, like, let me assign the blame to XYZ as to why I drink too much, or why, let's say suicide. Um, you lost somebody close to you, and so you want you want people to feel sorry for you, or you want to use it as a crutch, let's say, because I mean, I've seen that with people sometimes. And um point being is just having accountability, first and foremost. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're even considering making some step, whether that's SGB shot, cold plunging, sauna, all the things we talk about, then obviously you're at least acknowledging to yourself that something's going on. You need to make some kind of tweak. So if that's the case, like, the best way to start is to own it completely. So the whole Jocko thing of extreme ownership, like, take those words and like, literally to heart, and make it mean something, to where you are the one that's wholly responsible for your choices.
Yeah.
It's not your wife. It's not your crew. It's not your fucked up childhood. It's not your wife's suicide. It's not losing your buddy. It's not our buddy getting taken unfairly by a chance medical issue. Things like that. It's like, uh, life throws with curves. Shit happens. I'm not interested in assigning blame to these things. I'm interested in being accountable for the choices that I make
Yeah.
and the things that I need to do every day. So if I had to give one piece of advice, I'd say start there, is just be extremely accountable to yourself, and fully own it, so that day in and day out, you're able to identify the good choices you make and the bad choices you make. And a lot of that comes back to the things that we've talked about in the past about monitoring biometrics. So how do you know how your sleep is? You say, oh, I think I slept good last night. Well, when I started doing the Whoop strap monitoring, and I started really looking at the data and understanding what they mean, I found the differences in, like, what does the real good sleep mean for me versus just yeah, I slept for 7 hours solid. Like, because I've had way better sleep for 5 hours under certain conditions than if I were to sleep for 8 hours under other conditions. And I have to like figure those things out. And part of it is just being open to the fact that, well, there are some things that I do that, yeah, like, so if I know for myself, if I eat after 8 p.m., whether I eat a nice piece of fruit or I stuff a bunch of M&Ms in my mouth, it's not a good thing for my body. I don't sleep as well because my body is digesting that food. There's a bunch of stuff going on chemically, hormonally, that when I look in the morning, the numbers are messed up, right? Like they're not as good. My recovery's not as good. I didn't sleep as well. My body was under more stress while I was sleeping. Um, so, okay, don't eat after 8 o'clock. Do I
Yeah.
always do that? Of course not. Me and the wife were watching some bullshit Netflix series or something, and we make some popcorn, and I'm crushing popcorn at 9 o'clock at night. Okay, is it the end of the world? No, I mean, but I'm making a conscious choice. It's just like, um, so. I mean, that may seem silly, but those things add up. If you rewire your mind to look at it that way, it's just like I understand the choices I make are always going to have consequences, and I weigh it out, and then I make the decision. And so, yeah, if I had to give advice, I'd say start with just the extreme ownership and the accountability, because it goes back to what we were talking about, the same story that you brought up on your own. You and I didn't even talk about that, so it was ironic that you brought that up about the guy that hit us up about drinking during the shot, because that is like a perfect illustration of what we're talking about. It's just like there was no accountability or ownership in that scenario. That person, as much as I love him, he was looking for a magic bullet to fix his problem, but he was not willing to make changes in his daily routines and his daily choices because he wanted to continue to carry on the way he was currently living his life. And he was looking for some outside way to quote unquote fix his problems. And it's just that doesn't
Yeah.
exist. So having that mentality of ownership and accountability is super important. And along with that comes the recognition that, yeah, this is a commitment. It's day every day. This is literally lifelong. It's not something that gets resolved overnight. It doesn't happen in a few months. It doesn't get fixed in a year. You're 5 years out from stable suicide and you're still dealing with your stuff. I'm, 2 years out of mine and I'm still navigating and learning all this stuff, but every day's new, like you said, and you just keep plugging along.
Yeah, dude. I didn't there's a lot you said. I thought I took ownership in the beginning. I really, really thought I did, and I really feel like I've said this before, my biggest changes, the biggest growth has been since last September once I got the shot, because I was actually I felt like I was in my own body. But prior to that, man, like when I'm honest with myself and I'm truthful and I look myself in the mirror, I'm like, wow, I, yeah, I'm not taking away from how hard life is. I'm not taking away from how that, there's a lot of traumatic stuff that's happened, right? From being a kid and religion and the job and all the stuff. But I did not know how to navigate any of it. Being truthfully honest, man, I thought I did. I was trying. My way to navigate through it was to always laugh and to always joke, because that was my body's response to trauma. And I did not know how to accept help. I thought about this the other day and I'm like, man, like, nah, they helped. But during the moment, I didn't know how to accept it. And I remember when everything first went down, there'd be people from work, hey man, well, I'm going to come down. You want to hang out? We'll come down. This was right before COVID, and then COVID happened. But I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. No, I got this. I wasn't even accepting the help, dude, because I was so embarrassed of like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to do this. Right. And then at the end of the day, I ended up hurting myself a lot more. I ended up digging myself a way deeper hole. I ended up pushing some friends away because it's like, well, dude, like we tried to help, but if you don't want our help, then F you, right? So it's like, I want people to learn from my F ups, right? And that's one of my missions of why we're doing the podcast, right? It's like I thought that I was doing the right stuff, but there was pride in me of like, no, I'm going to take care of this. No, I'm going to keep going. No, I don't need anybody. But internally though, I wanted the support, but I really did not know how to accept it. And how stupid that might sound, I hear myself saying that. I'm like, no, dude, like you should have just taken the support. But really, I didn't know how to accept it. I It's weird hearing myself say that, dude. But like if anybody else is like, man, I feel like that, it's like, hey, you're not alone. But take that support. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you any of this bull crap we think it is if somebody wants to help. Right? We were in we were up in up north, dude, and I thought about what you and I were going through. We were going to go to that aquarium, right? And
Oh,
I
in
didn't have the
Monterey.
money at the time. And you're like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to pay for that." What was my response to you?
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Like,
right? But you're like,
yeah.
dude, just let me do this, right?
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of things in these past few years where I'm like, you got to let your pride down.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you dig yourself a hole by just not accepting the help and not accepting the support. And like, you know what? No, this is where I'm at. I'm not weak or not stupid for asking for help or actually accepting the help and realizing it's right in front of your face. Because I didn't notice that, dude, for a while,
Yeah.
and it took a lot of lonely nights and a lot of soul searching, a lot of journaling, a lot of walks, a lot of like, what the hell is going on right now? Like, how come I feel like I want to accept the help? I don't know how. And like, I've always had this wall up because your body is just in survival mode, and you have this wall because you don't want to get hurt again. Now it's like, I felt like, well, I helped you. Now you have to help me. Right. It's like, yeah, yes, we do that. Right. That's just what we do. What goes around comes around. But my body, my brain was programmed in a way of like, if somebody helps you, they're always going to ask for it back. They're always going to ask for it back. There was something you did for me. It's like, hey man, I don't give a F. You know, I'm not asking for anything back. I'm just here to help you. And if you can in the future, cool. Awesome, bro. If not, I'm cool with that too. Like, there's a lot of things you said. I'm like, dude, that changed my perspective on stuff because I wasn't raised that way, right? It was always like tit for tat, per
Yeah.
se, right? And so, anyone that is out there that has grown up like that or has those same kinds of thoughts, it's like, let the wall down. You know, when the time is right, do what you got to do, work through your process, but don't make the same goddamn mistakes I made. When people are trying to help, fucking recognize it. Let them help you. Honestly, you know, let them do what they need to do because that's gonna, first of all, speed up your healing. It's going to um, cut a lot of the friction down that it might create during that process. Because, you know, there's a lot of rebuilding I'm having to do, right? Not knowing during the time, but once you heal, you're like, oh, goddamn, like, wow, now I see that now, how that can come off, right? But when you're like fighting for your life and uh, that plane is crashing and you can't even see all those things going on, you don't know what's going on at the moment. That's why I'm saying this. It's like, if anybody's listening to this and they're like, hey, I feel like that too, it's like, okay, well, first get the SGB shot. That's going to help. But take the help. Understand that they are there to help you, right? If they are your true buddies and your friends, it's like they want to see the best for you, and don't be afraid to accept that. Um, and or on the other side, dude, if you're not like I was and people are trying to help and you can't accept it, but you know you need to ask for help, that's a whole different door, right? If you're just trying to white knuckle life and you're just going to keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through, eventually your body's going to crash. So it's like, go ask for the help. Go do what you need to do, because if you are just living your life, white knuckling life and just pushing through, pushing through, pushing through, then in my mind, like that's not good, dude. You know, because really you're just something's gonna crack. And I feel like the strong thing to do, the courageous thing to do The right thing to do is go help yourself. Go do what needs to be done and reevaluate. Because all you're doing at the end of the day is hurting yourself. Maybe your friends, your family, your workmates, whatever. Um, there's I still hear their stories. Some guys don't want to work with certain people because they need help. They need help, but they're not getting the help, and so they're the dick person to be around on the crew, right? It's like, so just go grab the help, man. Go do what you need to do. Go take time for yourself and do what you need to do to to heal whatever it is. Because first of all, you deserve it. Your crew deserves it. Your family deserves it. The world deserves the best version of you. How cliche that might sound, but it truly, truly does. Because the better you are, the better off you're going to be for everybody else, man. And these are things I've had to learn the past few years. It's been a process, dude, of embarrassment, of shame, of guilt, of massive, massive failure of like, I didn't hold my marriage together. I couldn't keep my job. I, used to make a ton of money. Now I went down to making less money on this retirement. And people might think, oh, you got a retirement. You're all super stoked and it's all roses and beaches. It's like, nah, man, that's not how it rolls. Like the work just started. I feel like it was like the work is starting now. Like, so anyways, but I don't want to go off a tangent,
It's
but
a good way. No, but it actually like it kind of circles back to it makes me think of that quote I said, the impediment to action advances the action, and you're facing the obstacle face on or head on right now because the obstacle to your advancement is having to overcome the guilt and the shame that's self-inflicted because it's kind of like you and I had those conversations where what was your own view of yourself like that I was telling you quit fucking worrying about it like right now you're worried about stuff that's not even important. Like I'll pay for your fucking aquarium ticket. You've bought me dinner before. It's not like you know what I mean. It's like we're bros and
yeah,
stuff like that. And it was like you drove up to see me. I didn't put gas in your Jeep. You did that. So there, like staying at my house. We've talked about that in the past, where you felt like you're in our way. And I was like, dude, I'll tell you, get the fuck out of my house when I want you to leave. Like I'm pretty direct, right? So if you're at my house and you're my guest, it's like assume you're wanted there. And but I get what you're saying, right? That's the hard part is to overcome that self-talk and to realize like, well, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Shane didn't want me here, he kicked me out, kind of thing, or whatever. And I jokingly told you, yeah, hey, when you're a millionaire, I expect you to be taking me out to steak dinners, right? And but I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's that impediment to action being the fear of like, oh, I look stupid. I used to make money. I used to be able to afford the dinner. Now I can't. Or not that you can't, but should you? Or the balance of looking at it from all these different perspectives. And so much of that is just the same thing. Like I said, it's like that extreme ownership of making choices that, hey, right now, it's not, you're not in the same position you were before, but you're a better person than you were before. You're a more experienced. You've taken everything you've been through. Um, you've tried to learn from it, and you're working towards something. I think that that's a really important perspective is to realize that it's like me, man. When I quit the fire department and I was traveling around the world, you know, like I've joked before with you, the magic fairy wasn't dropping money in the bank account every 2 weeks anymore. And to your point of getting an early retirement, it's not what you wanted, and you are grateful that you're getting that money, but it is different. It's very different because you don't have the ability to, oh yeah, I'm going to work a little bit extra overtime so I can put some extra money in the bank so we can go on a trip or do this or do that. That's a hard pill to swallow when you've had that freedom for a long time, and then all of a sudden it's unfairly taken away from you because it wasn't like it was a justified. Uh, uh, Situation you went through with a horribly traumatic scenario, and then um, heaped more of it on at work, and then couple everything together. That's something that in our minds it's hard to square away. It's hard to understand. For you, it's I don't know if it's God's plan or however you look at it, but whatever we need to do in our minds to rationalize whatever we're going through, we're all navigating it. There was a really good podcast recently with Andrew Huberman and Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you got a chance to hear that
yeah.
one
That
yet.
was just a couple days ago, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
dude,
listened to it, dude. Yeah.
phenomenal. And
Yep.
it's funny, I saw like an article online about some people bitching about you know, oh, you're supposed to be scientific based only. You shouldn't have brought this guy on talking about religion. It's just like, God, man, the people that listen with just the echo chamber mentality of only listening with one sort of train of thought. So those people being very scientific and just so anti-religion that somebody who speaks from a religious uh, even I didn't feel like he was speaking from a religious angle. He was just talking about theology, and I thought it was fascinating, and I thought there was tons of scientific information from both of them. I mean, they're both doctors and both brilliant. So, um, anybody that hasn't heard that, check it out. It's on Andrew Huberman's podcast, the Huberman Lab, and
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson's the guest. But a lot of what they talked, the reason I thought about that was kind of your conversation, or some of your statements. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the podcast about Peterson was making it a point that we like to assign things like words like personality traits or like aggression is their personality, let's say. And he was kind of talking about how, well, is it or is it a habit learned by the brain early on, and they weren't actually taught the right way. And the brain just reinforced that was the response to a given scenario, whatever it is. And they go through several examples that are pretty interesting to hear about, like how in lab settings by the stimulus of the hypothalamus in certain conditions, how it induces rage or induces like sexuality or just different types of emotions. And I'd never really considered it from that point, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So, you know, how much of it is, again, how much of it is an actual choice versus how much of it is just like involuntary that you have to go back and retrain yourself on. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I think you had all that training up to that point, 20 years almost in the fire service of, being fiercely independent, financially independent, and then to feel, man, I'm like starting over. It's a shitty feeling. But it's one that is at the same time you can choose to look at it as a shitty thing, or you can choose to look at it as a pretty cool opportunity that, like, we had that conversation offline about stuff like, dude, look at the retirement as a positive thing. It gives you enough money to live a decent life and pursue other stuff right now, right? And in time, you will probably exceed the life you were living before, kind of thing, and I know you know that now, but it's conversations that we had together. But it's a mindset, right? You have to
Yep.
choose that, because you could choose to feel sorry for yourself. You could choose to um, seek out sympathy over what happened with Sable, but that's not who you are as a person. You choose not to, and um, but other people don't. It's sometimes it's probably easier to be a professional victim. You know,
Yeah. I think, dude, it's see, it was either going to be a musician or be a fireman. Those are the two paths I wanted to go. And being a fireman was my dream. Working for Long Beach was my dream department. So having your dream taken away and having all the trauma, it's like, yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around. But like I've said before, man, it has been the most, like, a lot of bad things, but I think it has been some of the biggest growth and challenges and perspective changes that I needed, right, to grow as a man. And to be able to look in the mirror now, Shane, and be like, yeah, I'm proud of who I see. Because for a very long time I wasn't, dude. I was disgusted with myself, which is, I used to use the badge. I used to use my uniform, dude, as that was my validation to myself. If I've accomplished something, right? Which is okay, which is good. But because I grew up super poor, I was the first one to go to college, first one to graduate high school in my immediate family, and so to actually have something that I was proud of and have it taken away, it's like your dream's taken away. You worked for it, you accomplished it, you had your dream, now it's taken away, and now all these things are going on. So it's something mentally you really have to, like, really battle through and challenge your thoughts and challenge so many different things to be like, okay, it's not, you can have numerous dreams in life, right? Maybe that one didn't work out. That's okay. And um, I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson says something like that. He's like, it was the best dream that never happened, right? When he wanted to be like a pro football player, but then he became an actor and stuff like that. It's like, thankfully, I got to live that dream for a while, right? And look what we're doing with the podcast. Look what we're doing with, I still help out the fire department with different things. I'm a instructor at the fire academy and the medic academy. I'm still doing plenty of things, right? Like money's fine. But to get there, you have to navigate through it, right? And to be able to figure out, is it the right decision? Is it not? Um, how are you going to move forward? And it's like, that's the journey, man. And that's where we grow. And when you're feeling lost, when you're feeling lonely, when you're trying to navigate life through your own challenges, because everybody's going through something, dude. Everybody's going through something, man, whatever the heck it is. And we don't know what people are personally battling, but we all have choices to make every day, whatever that challenge is going to be. And only we truly know. The kids may not know, the wife truly may not know, the husband may not truly, if it's flopped. But you can still communicate stuff, but at the end of the day, you have to make that choice. It's your personal choice of what you're going to do. Um, there's somebody I want to bring up, dude, with choices. When we received Javen a few days ago, when he came down from Simi Valley, and I got to see a lot of my Long Beach buddies, and it was great, dude, because I haven't seen a lot of those guys for a while. Unfortunately, sometimes tragedy brings people together, and the positive side of it, right? But there was one of our buddies. He's actually going to come on the podcast with us. He said he would, but he got his shot about, what would you say, dude? Maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago, or
Oh
something like
no,
that.
more than
Was
that.
it a year ago?
I bet it was a year at least.
Because he got his after me. My first shot was last September.
Yeah, no, but that's a year and a half ago, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Started
it's probably like,
started January 25. So yeah, he
yeah,
was
eight,
after
nine,
you, but I'd say
eight,
he's
nine
every bit of
months,
a year.
a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, and so he told me we were out. The Ontario Fire guys, man, they did a really really cool thing. They ended up taking us to one of their friends owns like this Mexican restaurant. So it was all, hey, come over here, hang out, get some food, and just represent Jabin. So we had Jabin's turnout coat there, and yeah, just everybody kind of hanging out, right? Kind of just talking and stuff. But while we were there, I don't want to say his name, but this person came up to me and he's like, hey, dude. I'm like, what's up, man? And he goes, I think the shot worked. I'm like, oh, really? What do you mean? He goes, yeah, I didn't realize in the beginning. He goes, but dude, like, my marriage is good. And that's actually how the conversation started, because I know it's kind of been difficult. And so I was like, hey, man, how's the family? Oh, we're doing good. I go, you and the wife are good? And he goes, we're great. And I was like, what? I'm like, that's awesome, dude. Hell yeah, good for you, man. And he goes, you know what, bro? Like, I think that shot worked. I'm like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, I didn't really realize it in the beginning, but then he started going down the list, right? Of less irritability, better sleep, better sex life, and he's not coming home like pissed off all the time, right? If the dishes weren't done or the trash wasn't taken out or shoes weren't put here or laundry, whatever, right? He was like, nah, man. He goes, I still on edge sometimes, right? Because just, it is what it is. It's life. He goes, but overall, he goes, it's, it's, we're great. Family's great. Life's good. He goes, I believe in it. He goes, but it took me this long to finally realize it. So it made me so happy because I respect this guy so much. He's a captain now, but he was one of my engineers when I was working down there. And solid dude, great fireman, just an all around really good dude. And to have somebody that you respect and tell you thank you and like, hey, you know what, that really worked. I was like, that's awesome. And then for it to like help his marriage and his relation, just so many things, man. Like it brought this sense of calm, because sometimes I feel like what we're doing isn't working, right? Yeah, we get the emails and we get these things, but we're not seeing those people in person. I'm not. But when it's, I think like anything, it hits closer when it's home, right? And you're like, wow, okay, I've worked with this guy. I've seen the change, right? And when for someone like that to say that, and how Taz this person is, right? Always just doing, just going from one place to another, right? It meant a lot, and I was like, good for you, man. That makes me happy, dude. So, anyone that is thinking about getting it or has gotten it, and it's like, hey, man, I'm not seeing all the results yet. It's like, just pay attention, give it time. Maybe you do have to go back for another one, man. Right? Chris talked about that, right? Maybe one shot doesn't do it. Maybe it is 2 shots or 3 shots, but it's like it's the shots have to have a purpose, right? And you have to go in with the right mindset. And even someone like this guy, um, he went into it thinking it was gonna be, and he knows like a magic bullet, like the pill, right? And it ended up
Oh
being
yeah,
later.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
I know.
And
Well, I remember the
um,
conversations with him leading up to it, and then afterwards. And I had a yeah. I remember. Well, you and I talked about it. I knew that and that's the hard part. It's when you compare yourself to others. So when you hear these miracle stories, that sound so great, and you get online and you watch these YouTube stories, and you see these people crying, and oh my gosh, it's just to save my life, and um, yeah, of course, everybody wants to feel like that. And then when it doesn't when you don't have that, then it's like, well, it didn't work. And um, yeah, no, it was when you told me about it, man. I was stoked to hear it too. It's great because I dig that guy as well. I mean, him and I are real similar, and I think
yeah,
it was great to hear that. And I look forward to seeing and talking to him about it too. So,
yeah, yeah,
but
and
even that too, that I'm sure he knows now. It's like a continued day in day out of the choices you make. Because you can easily get right back to where you were before. I mean, it's not that hard to get right back into the same routines that you're in. Um, I see it a lot, and yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't heard you say that before about feeling like what we do doesn't work. I get what you're saying, but it's just the I think that it's a perspective that's hard because it's like you want to help everybody and you want to give them the best advice, and it's like you and I are still doing stuff ourselves. We don't have it all figured out, and I know you've set up a podcast soon with Doc Springer. I'm excited to talk with her, and appreciate the work you've been putting in on all that stuff. So, um, yeah, I think it's funny. When you're a kid, did you ever read those books, the Choose Your Own Adventure books, where like turn to this page or this page? It gave you an option. Like as you read through a chapter,
oh yeah,
it would give you like an option, and
yeah,
it's funny. Like I was thinking about that as like almost like life, where I think so many people want, like with the shot, they want a guarantee that it's going to work. I got a text today, a guy I work with who's been having some anger issues at work. He's had a couple blow-ups. Had a big blow up recently at one of the stations over fucking bedroom, like, and then arguing with another guy in a room that they share but opposite shifts, and so uh, and it was just like, dude, really? Like that's the stuff we're blowing up over. But it's obviously it's like more underlying stuff. And so I was happy today he reached out to me and was like, hey man, can I get the information um, about the shot? I hear good stuff and blah blah blah. So that was good to hear that he made a good choice, that he's at least taking a step in the right direction. Now, if he goes and gets it, then that's a good choice. Hopefully he'll follow through. But it's kind of the same thing
yeah,
that choose your own adventure. It's like you're at that page now where you can go to this page and you get the shot, or you go to this page and you don't get the shot, and you see what that looks like. So I just thought that seemed kind of funny to think about it that way.
yeah. No, it's true, dude. And like with our other buddy, um, that he said the shot worked. It's like now that he feels it, now he's like, I want to tell everybody. But he wasn't like that before. Then
Right?
at that day he was like, but this person needs it, that person needs it, this person needs it, that
Did he
person needs
really?
it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's, oh
yeah.
yeah,
He didn't.
he started naming people off,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say their
Oh
names,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
No,
like,
don't. Right.
I'm like, because now he believes it, right? Because it
Well, it's
worked.
like it's like all of us. It's
Yeah,
how this whole thing started. Me telling you because I wanted you to go get it. It's like the same thing that
yeah,
happens. Yeah. But that's a good thing.
yeah,
That comes from a
yeah,
good place because you want other people to be happy and healthy. So I mean, I like that because you could be a selfish dick, go get the shot and not tell anybody about it. Like, hey, I got mine.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's way better to hear stuff like that people are. That's pretty funny though.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I can't wait to have him on, dude, because it'll be a lively podcast for sure. And I think a lot of people are gonna get laughs from him. He's just such a spaz. But
Yeah.
um uh yeah, man, it's yeah, and I said that because that means a lot as well, right? Because that's how we help people, right? And there's something you said in the beginning of the podcast. You're like, with all this, there's an inundation of information, right? It's like, how do you know what to do, and who's trying to make money off of you? What's real, what's not? Who do you trust? What doctor? What this? What that? And Chat GPT, and then this and that. And there's so much information out there. What do you do? And I'm like, you know what? I think that's why we do this, right? That's why we're doing the podcast. Is like, hey, let's break it down simple. Let's start here, right? Let's start with the biological reset. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other paths you can take, right? Even like Chris Romick talked about it, but like we're gonna have Doc Springer on here as well. And anyone that doesn't know her, you guys can research her a little bit. But it's Doc Shauna Springer. She's written a couple books. She works a lot with first responders, Navy SEALs, and we're gonna have her on here. But start with that biological first, right? And then it'll clear that mind, and you can start going down the path that way. And when you're unable to make the proper choices, you may not know who to listen to, because like you said, there's so many, like we're a podcast, right? There's so many podcasts to listen. There's so much information. And then there's something you said, I just took your instructor 2 class a couple weeks ago, which you did really well, man. But it's that um what's that term, dude? It's like when you can't make a decision. Uh,
Analysis paralysis.
yeah, right. It's something we've all heard, for a long time. But I think that can happen too with, like you said, the inundation of information. Get inundated with all this stuff, right? And it's like, okay, well, this doctor says this. Well, that doctor says that. Do you do ketamine? Do you do SGB? Do you go and do some of the other types of drugs, and do you go to Mexico? What do you do? What's right for me? There's so much information out there. Um, but
Dude, on that, not to cut you off, but I forgot to tell you this, on that same kind of vein, like when we've talked in the past about culturally competent physicians, therapists, clinicians, whatever. I did my psych exam last Thursday in down in SoCal for the department that I'm going to, and I had to I had to laugh, dude, because I go in there and I sit down and I take all the psych questions. So for anybody that is listening that doesn't know, like in the fire service, when you take a psych exam, there's different styles. The one I took this time was sit down and take like 6 different tests with hundreds of fill-in questions, and it's like, do you want to kill yourself? Do you hear voices? I mean, and then just like basic stuff too, like but and it's all pattern based and just whatever. So sit there for 4 hours filling out bubbles, and then you had to do the interview with the psychiatrist. And I remember he was you had to bring a resume and an autobiography, a 3-page autobiography with your resume, and then based off your answers to your question, based off your resume and your autobiography, they format a bunch of questions. So I think you had about 300 questions I had to go through. So we're sitting there talking about a bunch of stuff, and at some point he talked about, well, what do you think the biggest thing that uh, has helped you? Because I talked about the DUI and me doing the positive stuff with it, and the podcast and everything we do, and just all, I mean, I think 100 people that we were counting that we've somehow indirectly or directly helped foster through the process of getting the shot, getting some form of help, going to the center, whatever. And he was like, "Oh, that's commendable. That's good." Blah blah blah. And then I go, "Yeah." He goes, What do you think the biggest like thing that helped you sort of like crack the code or whatever?" And I just go, "Oh, it was the SGV shot, hands down." I go, That's the biological reset that allows all the psychological work to happen." And of course, what do you think he said? "What's the SGB shot?" And
yeah.
I'm like, awesome. Here's this guy, 35 years or something like that. He told me he's been doing psychs, to approve or disapprove of cops and firefighters. And you don't know what this thing is. It's like, God damn, man, this is it's just disappointing. It wasn't shocking because it was just at this point, it seems like the norm, but it's
hmm
disappointing that, somebody that's in that arena doesn't know that. And then even talking to him, you could just see, of course, the skeptic. He was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds interesting," but it. You would think like somebody like that might be interesting. Like, really, if you're telling me it's that good, maybe I should look into it. Maybe I should think about it for my own patients. But nah, no interest because it's something new and not. I don't know. It was just something ironic. Made me think of that when you were just saying that because I forgot to tell you about it. Figured you get a kick out of that.
No, it's true, man. And I think sometimes they take it as a pride thing, like, oh, then we're not going to be needed anymore. It's like, no, you're still
Yeah.
needed. You still got to do the mind work, right? You're still a professional doctor, like that needs to still help with like navigating through stuff. But now your body's going to accept it, right? And they're just unclear of the intent and the purpose of it, right? I actually saw a doctor in the gym. This was, I don't know, I think I told you about it. This was like maybe a year ago or something like that. And I was doing push-ups, and he's like, "Oh, were you in the military?" And I was like, "No." And somehow we started talking about mental health or something, and I talked about the SGB, same thing. He's like, "Oh, I've never heard about it." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I don't see how it could reset you biologically because it." And he starts going into all this detail. And I'm kind of like, okay, cool, like yeah, I get it. Like now you think your job's not going to be relevant anymore, right? And it's like, no, it is. It's actually going to help your job, right? Look at Doc Springer. It doesn't take anything away from her, right? It like helps her actually heal the patients. And there's something you've said, Shane, a couple times, and it's like because during instructor two a couple weeks ago, you're like, yeah, the system failed you, and I was like, well, no, there was support, there was stuff going on, but look, even you going for your psych, and he doesn't know the system, right? To actually help the brain out and help that mental side, right? So like when we talk about that the system is broken, it is broken. We know that to to a certain degree, and that's why we're doing this because it's like this can actually heal you, along with everything else, right? But um, no, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
That psychiatrist didn't know about it and whatnot. But anyways, yeah, man, it's we have the choice if we want to heal or not. We have the choice of who we want to be, and that is ultimately up to us, right? And just like with our buddies that have gotten the shot, and a year later they realize it works. It's like I think that's the biggest gift that I could ask. I'm thinking you probably think the same, but this information that you're hearing, just disperse it. Just tell people, right? Whether you're a fireman or not, it doesn't matter whether you're a cop or military. It's like even if you're not in a first responder, if just somebody in your family has gone through something traumatic or whatever, like just we need to get the information out there as best as we can. There is you sent me the TEDx um of that Green Beret guy. Remember that guy's name?
Yeah,
It was like that was
Trevor
a good one, dude.
Beeman. Yeah. Yeah, anybody
Okay.
want to check it out? It's Trevor Beeman, and then it's a TED talk he did. So I think it's Beamon. Um, if you type something in like Trevor Beeman Green Beret TED talk, it should pop up.
Yeah, that's a really good one, dude. I listened to that on the way back from your house the other day, and he goes into it right away, and he talks about the SGB and even being in the Green Beret and his childhood, and I think it's only like 15 or 16 minutes, but it's packed 15 minutes of a lot of information, and he talks about the work and all that stuff. So that's just another podcast if you guys want to check it out, or not a podcast, a little TED Talks. But yeah, man, I think it was pretty good, dude, for sure.
Well, it's
Just
amazing. I didn't get a call, so because I'm actually
oh
at the
yeah,
firehouse
yeah,
right now. So yeah, we lucked out.
yeah. And if you guys can just share this, like the more people, I don't want to be like, oh, the more followers we get, the better, or promote us. It's like, no, the more that people can listen to this stuff, the more help they'll get. And that's the ultimate goal. It's not to just get more followers or more likes or more comments on the stinking podcast. Yeah, all that stuff helps. But the reason it helps is because the more that people listen to this, the more help they'll get. So the more you guys share it, the more information you guys get. Research it, do your own research, check it out. We're throw a lot of names out there, Doc Springer and Chris Romig, and we're gonna be teaming up with the Rev X Wellness, which is pretty cool. So we're going to have them come on the podcast here in the next few weeks. So we talk about cold plunging a lot. It's a cold plunge that I use. Pretty much, not pretty much. I do it daily, unless I'm out of town or something like that. But we're not going to make any money off that. It's literally just going to be a discount code for anyone that wants to get a cold plunge. We've always talked about our podcast being ad free and stuff like that, so we want to keep it that way. But we just want to give you guys tools that you guys can use in your own time if you want it, and stuff that's reputable for sure. So yeah, just share. If there's anything that you guys want us to talk about, I know we've said this before, just email us, hit us up on email. If there's something we say that you want us to go deeper into, let us know. Or I think Shane and I have talked about this as well. We do a lot of this stuff remote. So if anybody from any other department or whatever wants to come on with us and have a conversation, that's gone the SGB or that just is into like mental health and whatnot, shoot us an email, let us know. We'd love to talk to you guys, and maybe we can all be on a podcast together and just get the word out there, because I really think that'll help the word grow, and we can just make a bigger impact for sure. So just let us know.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's been good to catch up with you again with these last couple podcasts. I know you've been pushing. We need to get some more out, so look forward to that. It was cool. I think you told me the other day that you were seeing people were streaming in like New Zealand and other countries like
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, I'm still blown away, dude, by we legit started this. Hey man, let's just do it for ourselves and let's just talk and and do stuff, and it's turned into now I'm working on coffee mugs and t-shirts, and actually making it something where people can maybe have pride, right? And like, hey man, this helped, or whatever, right? So we can build our community in like a tribe of like, hey man, you don't feel alone. You got something you can look at to be like, okay, cool, this is pretty cool, this helped me through this time or whatever, right? And I think me being a musician, it's like, the creative side's pretty fun, right? Of just kind of doing something a little bit different. So yeah, if anybody, hopefully we'll have some of that stuff out here pretty soon. I know we said we were going to try to have it out last year, but that didn't work. I ended up leaving on tour for a month, and things kind of just got pushed back and some things, but we're gonna get it. We're working on it. Working on it for sure. So yeah, you can reach me at epadgettcoaching@gmail.com.
Uh, and I'll still be at ricfirecaptain@gmail.com.
Cool, man. Well, thank you guys again for listening. Please reach out, share, and just get the information out there, and we'll see you guys on the next one.